AI is showing major signs of a bubble, and there are three major signs that it is slowing down. But is it about to pop? And what is smart money doing with all of this information here as we are seeing the development of this market move so quickly? We're going to get into all of that. But first, let's start in what's the first sign of a bubble. The first sign of a bubble or a recession is, do people think we're in a bubble or do people think we are in a recession? Well, it's starting to seem that way as the search terms for AI bubbles are skyrocketing here and not in a good way. And we're having a bunch of major influential people, even the likes of Jeff Bezos, say that we are in an AI bubble. But he's saying, oh, don't worry about this bubble. I think that it's going to be a positive for society's future. Now, I think I agree with him, but I also think that there is something that we need to watch out for when it comes to this AI bubble, because there's a lot of other signs here. We'll get into those in a little bit on how this could affect the overall market. Obviously, long term, AI is extremely bullish for efficiency. AI is extremely bullish for businesses. AI is extremely bullish for essentially every single industry, because when new technologies like this come out, it just makes people more efficient. Now, going on to what Jeff Bezos had to say, he said that this is an industrial bubble rather than a financial one, allegedly, right? And this is when he was in Italy speaking at Tech Week. And he says that there's hype and overvaluation are typical in such long periods, but it's overwhelmingly positive. And like I said, I agree with him. I think that the technology seems to be very positive. But the fact that people are saying that there is a bubble is an issue, because once there's smoke, there is fire. So once people start saying, hey, I think that we're in a recession, or I think that AI is in a bubble, you have to be cautious with how this is going to play out. Now, the second reason why is because of this huge deal we just saw here today, where AMD skyrocketed in flight and absolutely took off, because 23% of a stock jump is massive. And we also saw, I think it's even up even more after a little bit today, but it opened up as OpenAI taking 10% in a deal of this chip maker. And now OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT, is going to deploy a bunch of different new facilities using GPUs. So it wanted to basically get a piece of that pie. So not only do they want to develop AI, they also want to get a piece of the hardware side as well. Because obviously, when we see the developments of all of this, it gets insane. And quite frankly, AMD stock today was literally the most insane thing that you could possibly ever see. It's on track for the single day market cap gain in history. So normally you could see stocks go like this, 35%, penny stocks maybe even. But when you see the biggest market cap gain like this in literal history, you have to be alarmed, because these little guys, they can come in and they can see a big deal, or, maybe some small bio company has some sort of breakthrough, something along those lines happens. And then you see the stock price shoot up like this. Well, AMD is a already big player in this space. And then you see a 35% gain in a stock, which is literally the biggest jump in history. You can't tell me that this deal has not been overhyped and overvalued, to say the very least. Now, with this partnership, right? It's going to help a few different things in the AI space, especially with the OpenAI, right? It's going to essentially change the game, but it's going to add 6 gigawatts of AI infrastructure, and its initial 1 gigawatt of deployment will help its capacity by the second half of 2026. So this is still down the line. Now, this hasn't necessarily changed too much, and it seems like this partnership is going to add billions of dollars to revenue, allegedly, right? Because if you're making a deal like this, you need to hope that you're going to get a good return on investment, right? But their partnership is going to deliver tens of billions of dollars in revenue to AMD while accelerating OpenAI's infrastructure. So you got to think that essentially OpenAI is buying 10% of AMD to then utilize a bunch of their equipment to add tens of billions into revenue. So essentially, they're just dumping money into something that they already own and then seeing that return on investment. So that stock goes up. Their 10% ownership in what they own all of a sudden increases in dollar value. They could borrow against that money. They can utilize that money for a bunch of different purposes and now invest in OpenAI development. So it seems a little hairy. It seems like you're having your cake and eating it too, so to speak. And so we're seeing this development in this case with AMD absolutely exploding. But then on the flip side of things, you see NVIDIA crashing and burning and saying, oh, it's eventually going to hit a wall. There's no way that NVIDIA can continue. Now, the reality is a lot of these stocks and companies are extremely overvalued. In fact, the third reason here is that we are seeing the AI bubble be 17 times bigger than the dot-com bubble here today. So literally 17 times is absolutely massive. Even though we have seen the stock market explode and we've seen the stock market increase and we've seen the M2 money supply also increase, well, we haven't seen it increase by 17 times, folks. So this third reason of the AI bubble now being just absolutely massive and showing signs that it's going to pop, let's review for a second. We've got the thought that we are potentially in a bubble with Google search terms absolutely exploding. We have this way overvalued deal with AMD and OpenAI going through. And then now we have the overvaluation of these stocks reaching a 17x multiple than we saw in the dot-com bubble. And the stock market is already extremely top heavy. If we look at the mega cap stocks, you see that the top 7 dominate all of the S&P 500. And as of October 25, the stock market has been exceptionally top heavy. So these guys continue to look at the overall stock market and say, well, we are extremely concentrated. The top 10 companies in the S&P 500 account for 37% of the total index. That is the most by concentration in literal history, in the S&P 500 history. Now, we do see tech continue to outperform all the other stocks, which is interesting. Because right now, if you look at the other stock market, if you look at the S&P 490, not the top 10, all of those stocks are relatively flat. And then the S&P 10, the top 10, those are the ones that are running. So we're seeing an extremely overvalued tech sector, but it begs to the question, right? This is all good and plenty, but what does this mean for me and how do I make money on it, right? Well, what is the smart money doing with all of this? What is the smart money doing with this information saying that artificial intelligence is in a bubble that's 17 times the dot-com? Right? What is smart bubble doing? Is it about to pop? Everybody has that sense of, oh, you need to be careful because if you do not get out of the market now, you're going to get burned and we're going to start to see this bubble burst. But it doesn't seem like it's going to be that. AI has been overhyped, and it says it cannot deliver on promises, but the limitations of technology also mean that it cannot significantly improve in other states. It isn't profitable for people to use generative AI or to operate a generative AI company just yet, but there's allegedly hundreds of billions of dollars coming through. And my friend of the program, George Gammon, when he's looking at this overall situation, I think that he's giving a very, let's call it, good insight with all of this. He's essentially saying if you take a step back and you look at what the valuations are and what Sam Altman is doing, he's trying to create hardware and investing in legacy businesses that will survive an AI bust. So he's essentially saying that smart money is looking at the hardware side of things because you're always going to need hardware. Now, there's going to be different winners in the software. There's going to be so many different AIs that pop up. In fact, I mean, we've already got it. We got Grok, we've got ChatGPT, we've got all of these others popping up, and there hasn't been a definite front runner or true winner. But what Sam Altman is doing is saying, hey, you know what? We can invest in chips. They're always going to need chips in order to make this thing hum. So diversify from your core business that will likely make a fraction of what he claims. But, you're going to say wearable devices, all of these different aspects to try to get in it. And if you look at the way institutional investors are looking at it, they're saying they're not going all in. They're being more cautious and focusing on quality, right? So these AI deals, they're learning from their lessons here. They're saying that we should not be dumping all in. And it's peculiar because if you look at the signs, right, AI should be doing very well with another rate cut, right? We have a 94.6% chance that a rate cut is coming in just over 3 weeks. So if this rate cut wasn't already priced in, then what should smart money be doing? Well, they should be dumping more into AI companies, because if you dump more into AI companies, well, let's just face it. You dump more into AI companies, it's allegedly going to go up. And with the strength of the dollar where it is at 98.1, still relatively weak, well, tech sector looks like it would be a good bet to put your money in, unless you think for some reason that these are all overvalued and those stocks are going to pop here soon. Because even if you look at the S&P 500, right? I mean, it's going to close again at like essentially an all-time high at the close at 6,700 or 6,740. That was a bit of a mouthful, whatever you want to call it. But we're starting to see this development play out in the S&P 500. Now, to review, we've seen that the public is starting to think that we're in an AI bubble. We are seeing that all Jeff Bezos and the OpenAI deal absolutely overvalued. And then on top of it, it's not just one deal that is overvalued. It looks like the entire stock market is extremely top heavy, and people are avoiding and being cautious with investing into AI companies on the cusp of a rate cut. So smart money is being very cautious with all of this. So maybe you should be too. Of course, this is not financial advice, but make sure you're hitting that subscribe button. That is advice right there. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button for me. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and turn on the bell notification so you can come join me in the chat, and I'll catch you guys all at the next one.